Okay, where am I going with this? Well, for start, it'll be the first one that I've done. Kind of short story. So we'll see how it goes. These are just thoughts I've kicked around with a friend of mine called Rex, formerly from United States of America, Oklahoma, if I'm being truthful, now in the UK. And I had this conversation on 8th of the 10th, 23. And it's just ideas that we sort of kicked around, and we considered the possibility that the phenomena could be residual life forms that are tied to a specific area. And I realise I'm speaking about this and putting it out, and other researchers will probably jump on it and run with it as though it's their own ideas, when in actual fact it isn't. But so, you know, think about it when you're talking about things I say. I'm not groundbreaking. I'm not sort of finding anything absolutely earth-shattering. But if you've never heard it before and you've heard it come from me, at least have the decency to credit where you heard it from. So we're considering the possibility that the phenomena could be a low-life intelligence and just responding to human thoughts, human emotions. Like, imagine if we speak to a dog and we call it, it comes, it wags its tail, but it doesn't actually know what we're saying. It's just responding. If we approach it in an angry manner, you know, wave a stick at it, the response would be from the dog probably would be to cower or in fear, you know, or provoke an aggressive reaction. So it's responding to what it sees, it's responding to our output. And what if the phenomena is a little bit like that? So I've spoken to Rex over the years many, many times, and he came out with this really, really unusual story the other day. He's also had an experience, a cryptid type experience at a place called Hole Crag here in the UK. And I think it's important to cover that before I touch on the other stuff, because when he went to Hole Crag, he'd gone away for a few days of wild camping and just to contemplate on life. He was thinking about things that hadn't been absolutely brilliant in his life. And so his mind weren't in a good place. And that's when something very strange happened. Remember, it happened when he was in a dark place in his mind. It's interesting that when he was in this dark place, the darker side of the phenomena or phenomenon, is it many or is it one? That's when it took hold. That's when it presented itself. So, you know, we theorised that the intelligence at Hole Crag could have been resident to that specific area, and that it may have wanted only to communicate with his powerful thoughts, his emotions. Well, that's what it was picking up from Rex. You know, I know we'll never know, and I know we're only speculating, but just my thoughts. You see, but we're considering the fact, or me and Rex did, that this, whatever we're dealing with, may not even know the difference between fear and happiness. So I find that part of it fascinating. Once again, pure speculation, but I'll be honest with you, rational thinking has so far failed to provide an answer as to why anybody has these encounters. And there are areas of equally high strangeness all over the world where people have good and bad experiences. Reasons put forward by paranormal experts talk about the initial event and the end result, but avoid the reasons why the phenomena reacted the way it did. So we hear what happened to a person. Looking at my little dog there. It's very early in the morning here, people. But we don't get an idea of what happened in the middle, or the speculative reasons as to what might have happened in the middle. And I think we've got to start thinking out of the box, because so far answers to the phenomena just haven't come forward. You know, and we've been stuck on this single-mindedness for a long time. You know, I mean, people do veer off and come out with other things that become not groundbreaking but interesting. Right. So many years had passed since his incident with this hyena-type creature at Hole Crag, when his mind weren't in a good place. briefly touch on it. The atmosphere changed. Everything kind of, I don't know, went into what I call the lower silence. You know, this strange bubble of paranormal activity that seems to just envelop an area, not just a person. Obviously, it touches on whatever's in the area as well, because everything goes silent. But he saw an animal in the silhouetted darkness, standing up and sniffing the air and slowly getting closer and closer. And the fear factor was massive, and he began to scream and shout at it, and it disappeared. So that's the incident at Hole Crag, which we may touch on in more detail if I do another one of these at some point. But whatever he saw that night, it didn't harm him. Stopped him wild camping for a while, but slowly he's returned to his old habits and spending time alone in dark, remote locations, which is basically what he likes doing. So on the night we're going to discuss, Rex decided to drive into the countryside and sit and smoke his pipe and contemplate. He'd got a few areas. He'd got 3 specific areas that he liked to visit, and over the years we've talked about them all and different things that he's thought, things that he's come up with when we've just kicked ideas around. So he's at one of these areas. It involved reversing up a steep incline with fields either side and a big farm gate at the back of his car. And he's sat there in the darkness. I think, well, we know it was the month of September. It's 2023 because we only had this conversation a few days ago. And it's the same area where he claims he'd seen a strange, thin figure loom out of the darkness and climb up over a bank. You know, and I don't say these things lightly. You know, I've spoke to this man for many, many years, and we've had some great conversations. And if I told you the area, you'd realize that other things have happened there in the past as well. Other things that have made the national news, tragedies and things. But there you go. I'm not gonna try and tie these tragedies into what we're speaking about or what I'm speaking about today. So he's never shared anything on the internet, by the way. He just talks to me. 8 p.m. when he arrived, and the skies, he says, were clear and dark. And with the passenger, after getting his car into the position with the passenger window down and his own window down, he just sat in the darkness, turning thoughts over in his mind. He were in a strange place, as I've said before, where he's seen things of a strange nature before. But on this night, that wasn't at the front of his mind. He felt at ease. He felt quite relaxed. And then he went on to tell me at some point he must have fallen asleep, because the next thing he remembers is the sound. I wish I'd got 2 drumsticks to knock together, but he said he heard the sound out of the darkness, left-hand side, like 2 drumsticks knocking together. This guy's a musician as well. So interestingly, he's going to use analogies that sort of fit his mindset, things he's familiar with. And he said the sound came from his left-hand side. He says, and he looked and turned into the darkness. His mind, like we all do, searching for a logical answer to explain what he's just heard. And then he turned away to face the front of the car. Remember, he's on a steep incline, and he's pulled the handbrake up hard to avoid rolling down the hill. But when he turned around, what he saw was equally as puzzling as the sound of the drumsticks. Because he told me he saw an alien's face looking at him out of the darkness. And it wasn't just any alien. He claims it was the face from the book cover of Whitley Strieber's book Communion. And it was flat as paper. And it was in front of his car, above the bonnet. He said he couldn't see legs, he couldn't see arms, but there was clearly something stood in front of the bonnet, but flat. Makes no sense, does it? You know, it makes no sense. It's almost as though he's been on hallucinogenics, but he hadn't. He only smokes a pipe. It's there in front of his car. And flat as paper. So upon seeing it, because he said he wasn't frightened, he shouted, "Effing hell." You know, I don't need to swear, do I? It started with F. Book cover. And he shouted it into the darkness. Just continued to stare at this thing in disbelief. Moments later, he hears this again. Sound of drumsticks, and looks to his left into the darkness. Can't work it out. It's almost as like there's one intelligence playing out here, but there's a diversion to create something else for the person who's receiving this information. So he turned to his left and looked into the darkness, and all he saw was darkness. So none of this made any sense. And remember, our conversation, we're on 8th at 10th, 2023. So I don't know when this is going to go out, but I thought I'd just share this story because it only scratches the surface of many, many possibilities. But one that resonated with us both, one that I sort of contemplated, and I threw this at him, was could this intelligence be low? Could it be of low intelligence? And a term I will call the LPC, low phenomena communication. Remember where you heard it first. It might get used. I don't mind. They're not my words. Everybody's got the same words. It's just the way we put them together. The only thing that annoys me is when other researchers kind of run with them and imagine that they've created something innovative and new when they haven't. It's happened with ILF, intelligent light forms, the lower silence, lots and lots of things. Not my words. Everybody owns the words. It's just the way that they're stringed together. Anyway, let's just jump on with this story. So it heard the drumsticks once again in the darkness. Nothing. Turned and faced the front of the car. Now the situation had changed from the surreal, seriously, from the surreal to the absolute ridiculous. And he couldn't believe what he was seeing because there's another face looming out of the darkness. And this is... You can't make it up, obviously. He could be making it up. I could be making it up, but this is what he tells me he's seen. And he said it was sort of hovering above the car bonnet. But this time it wasn't an alien from the book Communion. Now he was looking at a green witch, a face that looked to Rex very familiar. Because remember I said he was from Oklahoma and he'd actually grown up in Tornado Alley. He said, and it looked just like the witch from The Wizard of Oz. And no drugs, no alcohol, floating just above the bonnet. So he immediately said out loud, he said, I swore at it, effing hell, Wizard of Oz. He said, now reached for the handbrake, reached down and rolled the car forward into it several feet, then pulled it back with an abrupt stop and the face vanished. Moments later, he heard the sound of drumsticks echoing in the darkness again and turned, but there was nothing to see. We discussed this bizarre story at length, trying to work out the motives, the reasons, why such an unusual string of events would happen. Everything has a cause and effect. I think we all agree with that. But what was the trigger? Was it the mindset, that Rex was in? Nice, relaxed state of mind. And he sees something that's familiar. He's familiar with the book Communion. He's read it several times. He's familiar with that cover. He says it doesn't even resemble an alien that he would think could exist. But that's what he saw, and he's very familiar with The Wizard of Oz. He reminded me of my own experience that I wrote about in The Night People, which is the book cover. And the chapter I called The Wedding Album People. I could see comparisons, although I was a little boy and I couldn't work out. I'd never know what I was thinking when I woke that morning. But in it, I woke up early in the morning and looked forward in my bedroom. Must have been very early because it was daylight outside, the curtains drawn. But there's a row of what we can only describe as alien beings. And remember, when we say alien beings, let's not just think from outer space. They're just alien, as I've said many times, to everything that we know and perceive as being normal. So it's alien to the human. So in fear, I turned away. When I look back, probably a few minutes later, I'm looking at a row of people from Mum and Dad's wedding album. They'd given me something familiar. They'd given me something that wouldn't be as frightening to look at. And is this an example of the phenomenon or phenomena. You know, I like to throw those two around because we don't know whether we're dealing with a singular or a multiple. Is it a low intelligence that, in some instances, that's only got the ability to look through our thoughts and show us what we perhaps would want to see, or give us images of what we might want to see when we're thinking about a loved one or anything like that? You know, we also talked about our recent guest on the Truth Proof live stream, Mike Kelland, and his accounts of people seeing huge owls and unusual animals before an encounter with the unexplained. So obviously this intelligence is impressing these things onto the witness. So, you know, all we can do is speculate, and some parts of the phenomena may not be as intelligent as we first think. We just don't know what resides at the other side of this firewall of the unexplained, but it's generally looked upon as being superior in all ways. But is it? You know, it's fascinating. You know, it appears to outsmart us on every level, rarely allowing us to get anything that could be considered as evidence. But let's just keep reiterating. Let's just keep pushing the theory that some parts may be of low intelligence, and its only ability may be able to see into a person's mind or read an emotional state, just like the dog that comes wagging its tail when you speak to it. You don't really know what you're saying, but it's got an idea of what's the outpour from the human. It's got an idea of what it's going to receive by what we are communicating with it via body language and moods. So I think there might be something to this. It might just see thoughts and emotions, good or bad, things that come to the front of a person's mind, depending on the individual's mindset at the time. Maybe doing this without any understanding of what they mean, showing us great highs and great lows in an attempt to communicate. You know, and one that I'll touch on, but you know, please don't take it literally. But what if a person who prays to God during a traumatic encounter suddenly finds the situation diffused because he or she truly believes that the faith in God will overcome all things? And I'm not saying it wouldn't, when in fact it's the mindset of the individual that's switched and the phenomena has disengaged. Let's play with those ideas as well. You know, just a little ding there on my computer. It's people who pray to God during encounters with demonic beings, and the beings vanish. So it appears to work on a paranormal level. But let's just jump out of that box a minute. Praying to God rarely works in the face of real life conflict. So it's clear that something else is at work. It may explain, come on, Paul, come on, give it a bit more thought. It may explain why the phenomena presented the way it did for Rex at Hole Crag, when he was at a time in his life where he had seen and experienced some traumatic events, and they were weighing heavy on his mind. There could even be a reason why he saw the green-faced witch from The Wizard of Oz. Like I said, he's from Oklahoma, lived in Tornado Valley, and that film featured heavily as he was growing up. So are we looking in the wrong places and asking the wrong questions for what's interacting with us in some instances? Remember, he's in an highly charged place as well. He's in a place where things of an unexplained nature have happened for other people. Some really traumatic things have happened in this location as well. And that's probably not for this outburst of thoughts that I'm pushing through today. But these accounts, they may sound ridiculous upon first hearing them, but could we be looking in the wrong places when trying to decipher what's happening during some paranormal processes? If so, how do we develop methods of communication? I think that's the big one. And how do we show those results to men of science, or do we even need to? Because I realize that most of what I've seen and experienced is locked inside my head, the firewall of the unexplained, and we just can't get it out there. So we have to devise ways of obtaining data, I think, that's more than anecdotal. That way we can add more credibility to the subject. And I'm not breaking new ground saying that. I realise that. How many times have we heard about a recently deceased person, I'm jumping around here, appearing to someone during a time of bereavement? Yeah? Hold this thought. Stay with me. Is the intense outpour of human thought connecting with the unknown intelligence? And is the unknown intelligence picking up on those thoughts and using those images, that mood, to try and communicate? I don't know. Just some thoughts there. So it's the first one I've done like this, people. I don't know whether it's going to work or it's not going to work. If you like what we're doing on the Truth Proof live streams, please like and subscribe. If you're interested in the books, the Truth Proof books, they're on the website, truthproof.uk. You can also download the Kindle versions of the books on Amazon. And we have our absolutely incredible documentary, Wolflands, out on Amazon Prime. And it's absolutely smashing it. It's doing brilliant. 3 years of hard work. At times I never thought we'd finish it, but we have. So I'll end it there and just say, if you enjoyed what I'm talking about or want to hear more short stories like this, please give us the thumbs up, like and subscribe. Thank you.